I spent my time in a quaint little import store, a stone's throw from Piccadilly Circus in the heart of London. I wasn't looking for anything, just looking at the curiosities on display. "Hello, Peter," I heard a familiar female voice softly call out a name I hadn't been addressed by in a long time. I turned and found myself staring into the green eyes that still made my heart race. It's amazing the gamut of feelings that can sweep over you in a split second. I felt a flutter in my chest, surprise, confusion, a desire to embrace this woman, and finally, cold bitterness. I stared at her for what seemed like 10 minutes, but probably less than 10 seconds. I am Peter, and I am a man who has weathered the storms of betrayal. "Hi, Barbara, what a surprise," I said, going back to watching, not wanting to engage her in conversation, but knowing full well that it was unavoidable. Barbara, I knew, would never leave things alone. "Do you have a few minutes to chat? I'll let you buy the girl a coffee and we can talk," Barbara offered teasingly. "I don't think so, Barbara. I have time, but I'm not sure we have anything to talk about," I said flatly. I didn't want to be polite to the woman who'd ruined my life. I knew she would persist, but she would have to work for it. I heard a quiet sigh and then, "Please, Peter, I'd like to talk to you and I'll get coffee." I stared at her dumbly for a while, and then I gave up. "Okay, but call me Peter. I'm not called Peter anymore." She rolled her eyes slightly and said with a touch of arrogance, "I think I've earned the right to call you Peter if I want to." "Okay, sweetie, have it your way," I said. She was visibly shocked that I was using the long-buried affectionate address I used when we were together on happier days. I would teasingly approach her from behind, hugging and caressing her. I always said in a whiny voice, "Come upstairs, sweetie, and give me some love. I'm needy, sweetie. I must have you. Please, sweetie, let's get naked." Invariably, she would shriek and giggling say, "Get away from me, you pervert. You won't get any love until I'm ready. Go take a cold shower, you booger." Often, these one-act plays would devolve into me playfully chasing her around the house or her spraying me with the kitchen sprayer. It was all fun, and we both enjoyed it. It was a good time. "You're right, Peter," she said softly and sadly. I was surprised by her reaction and sensed that there was more behind that surrender than could be explained in words. She walked briskly to the counter and spoke to the owner in a language I had no idea about. The short Asian woman behind the counter looked at me, nodded solemnly, and then bowed, inviting us into a small coffee bar at the back of the store. There were 2 small tables in front of the bar surrounded by wicker chairs. We chose a table, sat down, and a smiling woman brought us 2 coffees without even thinking. Barbara chose the chair facing the bar and the wall, and I went around the table and took the chair facing the door. Muscle memory doesn't forget. It was a ritual we had practiced thousands, maybe millions of times in our 24 years of marriage. I had to face the door. It was a nervous tick left over, if you will, from my time in Vietnam. After all this time, we still observed our rituals. I think we both noticed it, judging by the curious half-smile that appeared on Barbara's pretty face. We sat in silence for a long time, and despite my best efforts, my mind wandered back to the last time I'd seen this beautiful woman, my ex-wife. We lived in a small town in Connecticut, and I considered us a happily married couple. For the past few months, my wife seemed distant. I saw and talked to her every day, but I felt a disconnect between us. I tried to ignore this and redoubled my efforts to draw her away and bring her close to me again, to make her happy. Our 2 children by then had left home, trying to establish themselves in their new roles as adults. Nicholas, our son and the oldest, was 23 years old and had just graduated from college. In his senior year of high school, he married a sweet girl named Sarah, whom everyone adored. He and Sarah both work in New York City and take the train to their small townhouse in New Jersey. They had achieved some success and were, and still are, deeply in love with each other. It was beautiful to see. Our second child was our ball of lightning daughter, Emily, who was 21 years old. She is the apple of my eye, a feature of Daddy's daughters, and our wild child. I held my breath and self-control most of the time while she was in high school. However, by her second year of college, she finally realized that all the heat we were heaping on her was for her good, calmed down, and soon graduated with a bachelor's degree, appearing frequently on the dean's list. So there you go. I was editing an article that was to appear in one of the magazines published by my employer when I got a call from my wife. "Hey, Peter, it's Barbara. Would you like to have lunch with me today? I know it's an urgent invitation, but I thought it would be fun to do something out of the ordinary for a change." I was thrilled. "Sure, babe. That sounds like a great idea. I'm glad you called. Do you have someplace in mind, or should I pick?" "Meet me at Café Paris in, say, 45 minutes. Is that okay with you?" Barbara asked in a professional, measured tone. It felt like distance was still being maintained, but at least it was a start. I was beyond excited and hoped for a warming of our relationship. "I'll be there with bells on. Maybe I should wear something else," I said with a grin, trying to lighten the mood and show how pleased I was. "Yes, please," she replied, not very cheerfully. "Okay, I'll see you at 12:15. "Thanks, babe. That's a great idea. I love you," I said, getting up from the table and pulling out my jacket with a wide grin on my face. She simply said, "Okay, I'll see you soon." I hurried to my car and drove across town to meet my favorite wife for lunch. I cannot describe how thrilled I was by this simple gesture on her part. When I entered, she was sitting at the table with a glass of wine. I touched her shoulder and leaned over to kiss her. She turned her head slightly and gave me a peck on the cheek. I guess that should have told me something. "Hey, gorgeous, looking for a date?" I said, smiling stupidly. She smirked slightly. "Let's order so we have more time to talk afterward." We ordered, and she started talking about some translation projects she was working on at the import-export company where she worked as a language specialist. I ate and listened to her, but I started to feel a little uncomfortable. She hardly touched her food. After the dishes were put away, she paid the bill with her business credit card, saying that everything was fine and that her boss knew she was treating me to lunch. She looked down for quite a while and was silent. I was about to ask what was wrong when she, looking me straight in the eye, said, "Peter, you can't just say that. Peter, I've been having an affair for about 8 months. I love him, and I want a divorce." I was stunned, shocked, and destroyed in one fell swoop. I stared at her in silence, unable to speak. My world split in half in an instant. Never in my life, not even after what I had seen in the war, had I been so shocked. I was broken at the core. I couldn't think. I couldn't speak. Everything was lost. I was lost. She went on to tell me that he was extremely wealthy, a billionaire in fact, and that he would be picking up all the costs of the divorce. Since he is so rich, they would not claim anything in the divorce. I could keep everything. I seem to remember her saying something about my little assets staying intact. At the word possessions, she made a disgusted gesture with quotes in the air. I knew she was talking, but I couldn't hear anything. It was as if I was in a tunnel where I could see my wife's lips moving, but I couldn't hear a sound. All the words were like bells ringing for my death. Then she continued, "This is what I want, Peter, and it's in our mutual interest if you don't resist. Fighting it will only prolong the agony, but the result will be the same. I'm leaving for Europe with him tonight, and I won't be back." She did say, "Won't be back anytime soon, at least not until the divorce is final. Please let it happen without interference. You have always had a vested interest in my happiness, and this is something that will make me very happy. I'll call the children when I'm settled in Paris. I'm not sure how they will take it, but you needn't worry about that." With those words, she got up and walked out of my life, and I was still sitting there, not believing what had happened. The kids, as it turned out, didn't take to it very well. They were just as stunned and hurt as I was. She never called them, and I had to break the news to them myself. I was effectively accused of killing her and disposing of her body. The months following my wife's passing were horrible. My children and I fought fiercely, digging into our hearts about what we had done to make it happen and exchanging accusations. I was able to get the name and some information about Barbara's beau from her office unofficially. I then started searching the internet for any pictures or articles about him. Fortunately, I was able to find several photos of him with a radiant Barbara in his arms, taken after she had left, which definitively disproved the suggestion that I had anything to do with her disappearance. Interestingly, she was not mentioned in any of the photos, even though several people were listed in the captions. They were trying to keep their home life private. After about a year, I was able to get my new life together. and began to take an interest in life again. During this time, I became friends with a few select disgruntled employees of Barbara's former employer. I found out that senior executives not only knew about Barbara's affair, but also provided cover for her. It seems that some of her Bose companies provided a lot of work and products for trade, so they thought it was in their best interest to make him happy. They even sent out memos to some employees advising them to keep things quiet and ignore what was going on. Barbara's scheming took place on company time. Can you say lawsuit? Yes, I sued them. Now I'm living quite comfortably off them. I don't get my pound of flesh from Barbara or her beau. Note, part of our divorce agreement was that I would never reveal the identity of her beau, blah blah blah, but I don't mind making the guilty party feel my pain. It's been 3+ years since our last lunch, and I found myself sitting at a communal table across from my favorite ex-wife. She still looked very beautiful, the best clothes, hair, and makeup that money could buy, but she had a tired, sad look. Those soulful green eyes of hers, the eyes I'd always adored, told me nothing. She seemed to be dead inside. When she was happy or excited, those eyes would dance, flash, and sparkle with life. Today, the fire had gone out. Happiness was still eluding her. "You look good, Peter. Probably lost weight and got a little more muscular." She started the conversation. "Thank you," I said simply. This was her show. She wanted it, and she could pull it off. "I can't believe we ran into each other in London. What are the odds?" she continued. "Yeah, it's pretty hard to believe," I parried. "I've been doing a lot of translating in my new position, and I've even learned a couple of new languages." She continued to fish around for an opportune moment. "I've always been impressed by that about you. You're a very talented and beautiful woman." I finally opened up. She suddenly lowered her eyes and wept. "Thank you," she whispered. "I haven't been getting any recognition lately. I'm not sure anyone even knows I'm alive. I thought your husband was going to put you on display." "He never married me. I'm just an adult toy that can speak multiple languages. If he wants to make a good impression on someone, he takes me out to show them a good time and talk to them in their language. A 40-year-old American woman who can speak more than English can show people around almost anywhere and is willing to get late is, I think, rare. I've become a valuable whore," she said sadly. "What? Why don't you leave? Get on the nearest plane and get the hell out of Dodge?" I said hopelessly. "It's complicated. I live a very, very good life, but I'm being watched all the time. It would be very hard for me to leave. The only reason I can talk to you now is because we met by chance and I didn't leave the store. Also, Ma, the owner, is a friend of mine, and she kind of has my back if I need to hide for a while." It sounds awful, but I guess it's your choice. Okay, let's change the subject. Why didn't you ever call the kids? I had a really hard time convincing them that I didn't kill you or get rid of your body. They were devastated that they never heard from you. I was now insisting on answers. She only seemed to sink further into sadness. I wasn't allowed. I left that afternoon on a private jet, and access to my former life was completely cut off from me. As I said, I was being watched all the time. She suddenly leaned forward and looked directly at me. "Peter, I can't tell you how many nights I lay alone in a big house in an exotic place and wished I was still lying next to you in our home in Connecticut. God, I miss you, and I miss us." She sighed, her voice thick with a melancholic longing. I could feel myself reverting to an old habit, fixing everything to make Barbara happy. I saw myself being sucked back in and froze. Wait, I said, raising my hands in surrender. "I can't fix your life for you. What's more, I will not fix your life. How dare you sit here and whine about your life? You did this. You chose this. A whole bunch of people I dearly love had to live and deal with the situation you created for them. It was not what they wanted or chose for themselves. Their lives were forever changed because of choices and decisions that you made without their consent or participation." My voice grew louder and sharper, fueled by years of suppressed anger. "I happened to run into you for the first time in 3 years, and it's already all about you? Damn, I'm already tired. You know, you haven't asked about your kids yet. What kind of mother does that? For your information, you're a grandmother now. Nicholas and Sarah have a cute little girl who's going to be 2 in a couple of months if you're interested. Her name is Donna Lynn. Your daughter Emily, remember her? She's planning on marrying a nice guy named Tom in about 6 months. She's still hoping you'll be at the wedding, but it's really hard when we have no address or way to contact you. Maybe I'll send an invitation here." I started hyperventilating and paused, but I was on a roll. All my pent-up anger and resentment was spilling out. As far as I was concerned, what the hell did I do to deserve the kind of treatment you subjected me to? I loved you with everything I am and everything I had. You left me without even saying goodbye. Do you realize that you never once apologized for ruining my life? Don't sit here and whine. Asterisk. You asterisk ruined everything. You lost us. You lost asterisk me asterisk. Are you looking for a shoulder to cry on? You can't do that here. You killed that privilege 3 goddamn years ago in a little cafe in Connecticut. I was about to get up and leave, just like she did 3 years ago, when an angelic voice with a distinctly English accent broke into the fiery twilight. "Peter, I sure as hell can't leave you alone for even 5 minutes without you chatting up some beautiful woman. I swear I should beat you half to death," she joked, trying to look angry, but her blue eyes flashed with mischief. I was so engrossed in my rant that I didn't even notice Melissa walk in. I smiled warmly. "Hi, baby. Melissa, I'd like you to meet Barbara, my ex-wife. Barbara, this is my friend Melissa." Barbara was still reeling from my verbal assault, and now she was face to face with her replacement. She was silent, struggling to keep her composure. Melissa simply extended her hand in the traditional friendly gesture and said, smiling, "I'm very pleased to meet you, Barbara. Peter has often mentioned you, but not very warmly, I'm afraid. I suppose I should thank you for letting that lusty fellow go and giving me a chance to get a grip on him. He can be quite a nuisance, but I am gradually accustoming him to the house." Melissa looked at me and smiled broadly. She stroked my shoulder fondly and continued, "Peter, my crazy Peter, I'm afraid we must be off if we are to catch the train to Ely. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm worried about the time." I patted her leg. "Don't worry, my sweetie. I'm just finishing up." Then I turned to the still struggling Barbara and said, "We have to run, but thanks for the coffee and for your time. I'll tell the kids you said hi for me and tell them you said you love them, even though that's a bit of a lie." I shook her hand and then said, "I hope, Barbara, that you find your happiness someday, but I'm afraid you're looking in the wrong place. Thank you also for 23 good years. They were mostly happy years for me, and I thank you for that. Goodbye, Barbara." Barbara continued to sit with the same shocked look as I had 3 long years ago. Melissa and I stepped out into the bustling life of London to meet the appointed train. She never asked about the reunion, but I think she heard enough to know that it was not a joyous reunion. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Yes, I felt free, and even a little happy. Let's conclude the story shortly. As Melissa and I stepped out into the bustling life of London, the weight of the encounter pressed heavily on me. Barbara, still frozen in that cafe, mirrored the shattered man I had been 3 years ago. Melissa, bless her soul, never pried, but the air thrummed with unspoken questions. Her presence, her warmth, was a lifeline pulling me back to the present. On the train to Ely, the rhythmic clatter of the wheels against the tracks became a soothing mantra. The English countryside, a tapestry of rolling green hills and quaint villages, unfolded before us. Its serenity began to seep into my soul, slowly replacing the turmoil within. That night, nestled in Melissa's arms, a strange peace settled over me. It wasn't the euphoric bliss of new love, but a deeper, more profound sense of closure. The ghost of Barbara, the specter of my shattered past, finally began to fade. I realized then that forgiveness, true forgiveness, wasn't about absolving her, but about releasing myself from the shackles of bitterness and resentment. It was about reclaiming my happiness and my future. And as the dawn broke over Ely, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, I felt a new lightness in my heart. The past, though forever etched in my memory, no longer held me captive. I was free to embrace the present, cherish the love of a good woman, and look forward to a future filled with hope and possibility. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.